Hey everybody! On this episode of Gaming and Collecting, I am once again solo hosting while Alex is away, but in the meantime, I have longtime returning guest Shnickerman, and once again, we will be talking about the Digimon franchise, going over the games, the anime, all the card games, everything in between. It was a really awesome conversation. On with the episode. So this is where I'd normally say how you been, but if you notice from the video version, Alex is not here. She had a tough day. She just came back from Texas, so she's still suffering from that jet lag. But thankfully, I've got returning guest Nickerman is joining us once again. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing pretty good, happy to be back here. Sad that Alex is not here to join us, but after a few times, I'm feeling like I'm getting the hang of this. And apologize for the video viewers that my webcam went to the digital realm,
Yeah.
and we haven't seen it since. So
Unfortunate. It's been a while since we talked. I think the last time we chatted was Retro World, actually.
yeah, I guess so, right? I was thinking the RuneScape one, but I don't remember. Was that before that? After that?
Actually, no, that might have been after.
I can't remember, but yeah, it's been a couple at this point.
Yeah, because I think we actually recorded the Retro World recap episode with Josh. I was still using the old system, so yeah, I think actually the RuneScape
Yeah,
episode was
yeah,
where we last talked.
right.
But how you been since then? I know you just bought a house.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that. It's been pretty much nonstop house stuff. I'm trying to, yeah, build the game room from scratch, so that's always fun. Just acquire, there are little things when you move, you try to get rid of some stuff, but then there'll be other things that the new place doesn't have. This is a house, was living in an apartment before. So, you have to paint everything. You have
Oh
to
yeah.
like now it's like, oh, if my roof leaks and ruins my collection, that's going to be bad. So let me like do some extra waterproofing or whatever. So I'm kind of dealing with that right now. I know eventually it'll pay off and it'll be pretty cool. So
Yeah, I went through that whole thing. Like, actually, I just found out it was about a year ago to this week. So, yeah, that first like month in the new home is
yeah,
always like you're just going through everything. Like, and the fun part about being a homeowner, I've learned, is like you're constantly there's like always like just projects that you just want to make better. Like you'll be going
yeah,
around and you'll be like you'll see this one thing you're like I don't like that, I need to change that, or
yeah. You
go
have to
through
be
different things.
very, very careful. But I think also it's a good opportunity for like collector where I get so much stuff. So I'm trying to like fine tune things and maybe potentially get rid of some stuff that doesn't fit my collection anymore. So that's kind of interesting. And I like to kind of go through those cycles sometimes. You accumulate, you kind of like tone back and focus on different things. And oddly enough, one thing I'm focusing on right now is going to be Digimon. So it's a good segue into the episode.
Nice. Yeah. Oh man. So this has been an episode I've wanted to do for like a very long time. It's been just kind of one of those things where it's like I haven't really had an I it's been a timing thing mostly. Like I've been like I want to talk Digimon, but I didn't know exactly when I'd want to do it. And I always knew you were going to be like the guy because like you basically I've been since I've been online, you've always been like the biggest Digimon fan I've known.
Yeah, and for the record, I've been the kind of guy that every year or so I'll be like, "Hey, if you want to do that, I'm open." So the time has come finally.
Because I know you had commented on our friend of the show, Rick. He had just picked up Digimon World 2 recently, and
Yep.
we were chatting about it in the Discord server. And I remember you had mentioned it, and I was like kind of offhand, like, "All right, I got to do that." So I was figuring like, oh, this whole week Alex is gone. I might as well reach out, and
Yeah.
yeah, so we're finally getting around to this one. Oh man, Digimon is such an interesting like franchise because
It is.
I feel like it was massive in like the late 90s and early 2000s. and then it just kind of fell off a cliff and like disappeared for a while, and then now
Yeah.
it's kind of back.
It's coming back, and I will say, like, because I look into this stuff a lot. Like, you'd be surprised how many toys, merchandise, like it was probably pretty equivalent to the Pokemon craze at the time, right?
Mhm.
Like there were so many things. It was like everything you could think of, little tech deck, skateboards, carrying cases, like the whole nine, right? With
Oh yeah.
merch. And then, like you said, yeah, pretty much after like the first two series, the whole thing just fell off. Whereas Pokemon, continued to go every couple of years because of the games.
Oh yeah. And I think that's partially why they were so unfairly like compared to each other, because like other than like the whole Pokemon Digimon
Yeah.
game thing, they're not really similar at
They're not
all.
really similar, but the names, it's also the names, right?
Yeah. The names, they had games and they had cards at
Yes.
one point. It was kind of like,
Right.
and an
And
anime.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still say to this day the Digimon anime is miles better than the Pokemon anime ever
Yeah.
was. But
I think most people would agree with you, except for when we had the anime roundtable, I think, and we got into a fight about it.
I think they were just I think they were just trolling for the
Yeah,
most
I
part.
know.
I think it was mostly just Jared, because Jared's a big Pokemon guy. Shout out to Jared, by the way.
Yeah, shout outs to Jared. That was a good conversation.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. Like how did you first get into Digimon?
Yeah, so I think my story is kind of interesting as well. So when I was a kid, I was watching Digimon Adventure. But an interesting thing about me that not everybody knows is when I was a kid, I didn't have, like, my parents didn't have cable. So like
Mm,
we had a TV that we could watch like VHS on and play games, but we didn't have channels. So even when Digimon was on, I was pretty much watching it through the VHS. So like some of my friends would have, like, if you remember back in the day, the anime VHS where you'd get like 3 episodes, the Dragon Ball Z anime, GT, whatever, you'd have like 3 episodes. So I would have a couple of those and I would watch it at my friend's house. So oddly enough, in the very beginning, I thought it was cool as a kid, and I had like some related stuff. I had a couple toys and some of the cards, but I wasn't really that into the show because I just didn't have the opportunity to watch it. And so over the years, I heard about it, and I was always kind of like, I guess, attracted to the character designs. I think they're really well done, and it's just a total different kind of, a lot of these monster collector stuff, they always go with the super cutesy stuff, and Digimon's kind of the one that it has that, but then it also has the weird kind of badass creatures. So I was always into it. And then it was actually just probably in like 2015 or so when the newer games came out, like the Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth, and some of those JRPGs, that I dived back in and I was like, wow, I remember Digimon as a kid. And then I just saw that there were like over 1,000 Digimon. And I was like, wow, I got some catching up to do. So then I went back and like watched all the original anime series after that. So that's kind of my story. It's kind of disjointed. But yeah, like experienced it as a kid, fell off for a super long time, and then came back 10 years ago about.
nice. For me, it was kind of similar. I remember, so we had I remember I had an old CRT TV that had one of those built-in antennas,
Yeah.
and you could, back in the day, like before everything went digital, you could theoretically get channels if you got the antenna pointed just right. So
Yeah.
I remember like being in my room as a kid, and I'd have like the antenna, like because you could disconnect it from the TV as long as the wire was still connected, and like move it around. So I had it like attached to my wall, like right by the window, because there was a good spot where I could get channels. And I remember one of the channels I could get was Fox, and
Yeah.
famously, like back in the old days of Fox Kids, for anyone who remembers that channel, like iconic block, I would go to Fox Kids because that's where I'd watch my Power Rangers.
Mm.
And then once Power Rangers concluded, whatever, I think around, see, when did Digimon debut? I want to
Oh man,
say, it,
2000, 1999, 2000, something like that. I forget.
yes. So Digimon Adventure debuted 1999. The dub was famously handled by Saban, which was the
Yep.
same company that did Power Rangers. And I believe at the time, so 99, that they were in the Time Force, no, not Time Force.
Wow, what would it have
Um,
been?
they were in the Lost Galaxy era. So they had just finally moved on from the Zordon era, and they were in all the new stuff. Um, and I would always remember because Saban famously did Power Rangers, but they also did the dub back when they did dubs. That was a weird time. They did the dub famously for Digimon, so it would go from Power Rangers to Digimon, and I would always catch an episode of Digimon Adventures at the time. And it was the thing about Digimon Adventures that was tough was unlike Pokemon where you could kind of watch just an
Mm.
episode randomly and it would never really you wouldn't be confused. Digimon had an extremely complicated storyline and like arcs and like different things. So you couldn't just jump into an episode and then be like, all right, what's next? And it's like next week it's a completely different episode. You're like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and especially if you were like me and you would just catch an episode here or there, like at somebody's house. Like I remember the first probably like 20 episodes very vividly, like the Black Gears and all that. And then all the stuff in the middle, like I don't even know if I ever saw. And then it kind of picked up at the I kind of remember the ending of it as well.
Yeah. Like I didn't fully experience the series like from start to back until around like the early 2010s when back in the early days of YouTube where the
Oh yeah.
copyrights weren't super bad. Some guy put up the entire Digimon adventure, like every single episode. But this was early YouTube, so it was always like split up into like three parts each. So you'd have to watch
Yeah.
your segment, and then sometimes you get an episode where a segment got taken down, so like you'd miss like a quarter of the episode would be missing, and you'd be like, "Fuck!" So you'd have to go find it somewhere else. It was a very weird way to watch anime back in the day.
It was a really magical time though. There were, yeah, pretty much every show was on there. Like any reality show, anime, it was crazy.
Oh yeah. I remember watching all of like Yu-Gi-Oh through YouTube at one point before they just put it all on the 4Kids Vortex, or actually it's all on Hulu now, but regardless, like it was such a weird time. And I remember eventually they came out with full box sets for there's
Yeah.
a really nice box set you can find that has the first four seasons of Digimon, well, first
Yeah.
four series, I should say, of Digimon in this one nice like collector's edition. And that's how I finally like watched it perfectly from beginning to end, which was like let's say like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. And luckily, and for people interested who may watch this and want to experience some of it, I believe pretty much all of it's on Hulu, the first four seasons. So that's kind of how I watched, I think, Frontier at least.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can still check it out now as well. You don't have to go after. I don't think the sets are that expensive anymore unless you're
Uh,
there's very specific ones that sometimes are.
I know the old school
Old
like
ones are not. Yeah.
ones, like the old Saban box sets are very expensive, but the Flatron Films ones are pretty good. And then they're doing new Blu-ray releases now, so those are probably not too expensive either.
Yeah, probably the best way to watch it.
Hmm. But yeah, Hulu definitely has them all, so that's right there and easy to jump right in. Um, I will say inherently, one thing I found really interesting about Digimon was like, unlike Pokemon, like unfortunately, Pokemon's going to be a direct comparison because they've
Mhm.
always been pitted against each other since their existence started. Unlike Pokemon, the Digimon all talked and had like personalities that were like unique,
Yeah.
and they also the way that they handled like evolving, I thought was really cool. Where like it would be like a tactical thing where they'd evolve, but then they'd revert back to their like small form for when they're not fighting, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's kind of even really interesting because they it all started with the digital pets that they had, and those weren't like that. So it's really funny that they were like that in the anime, right? Because even in I'm thinking like Digimon World 1, like you digivolve and you stay there. So it's like the anime is the only thing that they digivolve and then they go back for some reason. I don't know why they did that, but
Yeah, because we're gonna be jumping all over the place during this retrospective. But like Digimon World 1 to me is I think the best Digimon game just from a concept,
I agree.
even if it is kind of a flawed game by today's standards. Like the Digimon World series to me is really interesting because like it started out like where it was just experimentation. Like
Yeah.
every single entry was so freaking different.
Yeah, and that's ultimately probably what kept it or held it back. But I don't know. It is what it is. It's a heated heated topic in the community, but I think pretty much everyone's at the consensus that it was probably the best thing they could have done at the time.
Oh
So
yeah, because Digimon World One is like I think the most like structured, where it's like it's a virtual pet kind of game, but it also has RPG elements.
yeah,
Um, World Two is just a straight up dungeon crawler that's not very good, but it's kind of nostalgic if you played it back in the day.
yeah,
And then three is the one that I think is my favorite of the original series, where it was just a straight up Final Fantasy turn based RPG.
yeah. 3 is probably the fan favorite, but I agree with you. I think Digimon World 1 is really cool because it kind of took their original virtual pets and turned it into a game. So it's actually, yeah, it's like a simulation game. That's the way I always describe it, because you have to kind of think about, like everyone will compare it to Pokemon. It's not a Pokemon game at all. You have to be tactical with how you raise the Digimon and how you get resources and stuff like that. So pretty cool. Yeah, 2 is funny because 2 could basically be like any other anime game, dungeon
Yeah.
crawler game, and you just put Digimon skins on it. It almost reminds me like a Shin Megami Tensei game or something like that. And then 3, I think, is the best, has the most potential, but there are some definitely weird limitations in the game
Oh yeah.
itself that would, I'd love to get a remaster of it because I think they could easily fix all the problems with it. Um, and the sprites are beautiful and everything.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would love to love that game, but there's just a few things that really hold it back.
What's crazy about three was when three came out, it got savaged by critics. Like it has like
Oh
one of
yeah. Oh yeah.
horrendous scores, despite being a perfectly fine RPG. I guess it's because it was a 2D RPG during the 3D era.
Yeah, but it's so unfortunate because the sprites are so good. Like it, you should really go back if anyone's listening who played it or thinks it sounds cool. Like, man, the sprites are gorgeous, and yeah, but at the time you're competing with like Final Fantasy VII, Final
Well,
Fantasy VIII.
even
Like,
worse, yeah, that was like Final Fantasy 9 era, I think, when
yeah,
that
but
came out.
any of them, I think people would rather play, right? If you're talking about like just a JRPG or something. So unfortunate timing for sure. And
What's
a
great,
franchise that was already kind of going down at that point as well, right?
yeah, because that was right around Frontiers era.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is like the Digimon World 3 then actually ended up being the spawn point where they split it off into two separate series where you had the
Yep.
World series, which was the experimentation toy box, and then you had Digimon Story, which
Yep.
of course over here they fucked it up and still made Digimon World, but
Yeah, and then they
um,
missed a couple entries over here as well for I think both of those. But yeah, I think they learned that their fans were a little bit divided, which is good. Happens. Pokemon did something similar to a lot of franchises do it differently. Um,
because Digimon Story was basically they took three and just made it its own thing where it was just turn-based RPGs because there was the DS one,
yep.
which is really good. I love Digimon World DS. Then there was like the weird they did the Pokemon thing where they split it into two games, but
Yes.
they
Not
were
to be confused with, yeah, Digimon World and then Digimon World Dusk and Dawn, which are not continuations of the first game and
no,
also different from each other, but they're they're all pretty much the same name.
and they're
So
all
yeah.
expensive as shit nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. They're very uncommon games.
Hmm.
Um, that's to say the least.
And then years later, when they finally started using the Digimon Story name, we got the two Cyber Sleuth games, which I really liked. I thought those were really solid.
Very solid games. Yep.
But then the World Series also continued on because we also had Digimon World 4, which was like this bizarre like hack and slash game.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. If there's a black sheep of the Digimon game franchise, it's definitely Digimon World 4. But interestingly enough, if you grew up with the game, of course, the nostalgia is there. A lot of people claim that the game is good. I will claim that the game is not good at all, and you should definitely avoid that game.
So you're more into the kart racer.
The car racer is actually decent in my
Yeah.
opinion. I thought it was pretty good. I had fun with it. So
That was one of our first interactions on Instagram where you'd posted that. And
yeah,
I'm like, that game is sick. What is this?
yeah. I won't get into the story of it, but I ended up purchasing it on like, remember back in the day, you talk about this all the time on Amazon. You used to be able to buy like games, and they would just like send you sealed ones for like
Oh
the
yeah,
same price.
because no one knew any better.
Yeah, so I have Digimon Racing sealed, and I just didn't have the heart to open it. So I still have it. Yeah, so that's a very uncommon game as well. But very good kart racer, I would say, for GBA. So
I was also going to say, like, the World Series too. We also, out of nowhere, like years down the line,
way later.
we got Digimon World Next Order, which was like their throwback to like the original Digimon World in a way.
Yeah, it's pretty much, if I'm being honest, it's the first game with all the quality of life changes that you would want. You know, polished graphics, all the new Digimon, everything about it. You can have 2 tamers. I have the platinum trophy in that game, so I'm a little bit biased. I played like hundreds of hours of it, so it's a little bit embarrassing, but it's a very good game. I would recommend, if you ever
It
played the
is.
first one, to check it out.
It is a gorgeous game too. Like it
Yeah,
looks so good. Like when I saw all the Digimon models on screen, I was like,
yeah,
"That is a good looking game." And as much as I prefer the Cyber Sleuth games, just because I prefer a traditional
me
RPG,
too. Yeah.
that was such a fun game.
It is, and it's funny if you think back to, again, I hate to keep bringing it back to Pokemon, but when Game Freak was talking about doing like all the animation, I think it was like Sword and Shield. They were trying to justify why they couldn't have more Digimon or more Pokemon in the game, and it was because of the character models. It was too much money or something.
Yeah,
And then you have Digimon, which doesn't have make a lot of money in North America, and they have like 200 to 300 Digimon like fully modeled and everything, you know. So you're like, okay, Game Freak, step it up, guys. Let's go.
I mean, I'm basically the internet's biggest Game Freak hater, so
I kind of am too.
I'll be here to dump. Like, I swear to God, anytime I see someone talking crap about Game Freak online, I always like jump in and be like, "Ooh, are we dunking on Game Freak
Yeah.
again?" Yeah, I think that's just Game Freak being lazy, because BB Studios, who made a Next Order, clearly did not have a problem.
Yeah. And
I have to.
sorry,
Oh,
you go.
I was gonna say, I have to ask, because this one seems divisive for some reason. Digimon Survive.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that one?
Okay, this is a good one because, yeah, so I don't know if anyone remembers when the game came out. First of all, it was in development hell for like a couple years. I think 4 to 5 years. I think pretty much since the last Digimon game came out, they had announced that Digimon Survive was going to come out. And they were always honest about it, pretty much. They said it's a dark game. I remember that was like the first thing. They were like, it's dark. And we're like, okay, that's cool. I'm down, you know? And then after a while, they started to show off some like gameplay, and you could see it was basically like a tactical or strategy RPG. So that got a lot of people excited. I know for myself, that's like one of my favorite types of games. So I was hyped on that. And then they kind of showed off that it was going to have like visual novel elements. But I think the discrepancy is that a lot of people, when it did release, because people weren't following it that closely, like I feel like I was following it very closely because I was very invested in it. But when you saw a new game and you just said, oh, it's a Digimon game, so a lot of people picked it up just expecting, like, I don't know what they were expecting. Were they expecting it to be a JRPG or whatever? And then when they played the game, they were like, wow, this is like 90% visual novel and 10% strategy RPG. And I'm like, yeah, because it's really a visual novel, right? So I enjoyed the game. The story is very cool. And of course, with any visual novel, there's like multiple endings. The characters all use different Digimon that you may be not used to. So that might be another thing that may detract from some people. But for me, I think it made it more fresh and interesting because you're not just having like Agumon, Gabumon, Vmon. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I've completed the game a few times at this point. So yeah.
Yeah, because I remember so I didn't follow that game at all, because let's face it, unless it's a persona or like a Tails game, I don't pay attention to anything. So when I happened to like I know you posted about it, and I was like, oh,
That's
Digimon
cool.
Survive. Yeah. I was like, I was intrigued by the title alone, because I was like, that's bizarre. Like it's a title that, like, you look at it and you just go like, that's weird, like jarring for. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Digimon has some nightmare fuel shit. It always has.
Yeah, it does.
Especially when we get into Tamers, like that series is a masterpiece, but it's also holy shit. Um, so when I saw Survive, I was very intrigued and I picked it up, and I enjoyed playing it. Like, I wasn't like in love with it because
Yeah,
I've played so many games. Like, I'm so jaded with the games at this point. But I found it a very entertaining game. And when I saw the backlash, I was like, why? I'm like, is it because the visual novel stuff?
yeah.
Like,
I'm the same. Like, I mean, I'm a big fan of the franchise in general, but obviously, the Survive wasn't like my favorite game by any means. But again, I felt like it was perfect for the Digimon formula of like just come out of nowhere, release a game that you wouldn't expect that's good, and like I said, I feel like above other comparable games, not mentioning any
Mm.
names, the story is very good. It's like a visual novel story. You wouldn't expect that from like a monster collector game, right? You might
It's
expect a more down to or like very generic story.
it's got a very striking cover too. Like
Yeah.
it's very, it looks very upbeat like a Digimon game would, but it also has a very uncanny like just look to it as well. Even Agumon's face is like, there's just something about it where you're like, this game looks a little different.
Something's wrong here, but
Yeah, which I think it's the creepy building in the background that really sets it. It sets off that uncanny valley kind of thing in your head.
yeah, and maybe that's a good point too of like you had mentioned, if you didn't follow this game at all and you see that cover art and you're like the first part of your comment, you're like, oh, this looks awesome. Everybody looks happy on the cover. Then you start playing this, like it can be violent. It's pretty depressing. Like it's not a game for a happy-go-lucky kid. Let me just say that.
Yeah, like it was just so weird. Like like the subtitle "Survive" alone just was
Right.
like this. It goes into your head, and it's like this doesn't compute well. It's like if they did like, I'm gonna go Pokemon again. If they did a Pokemon survival horror game, and you just be like,
Yeah.
this is weird. It's like when they did that weird crossover Pokemon Conquest thing, where it's like this was weird. Like these things don't mesh, but somehow it worked.
Yeah.
Um, that's been the most recent Digimon game, hasn't it?
Yep, that's the most recent one, and I don't think I've heard any news recently to any other ones. So I think that's where we're gonna stay for a while. I'm not honestly sure how well it actually did. That's the biggest problem with these games over here, unfortunately, is that you know they don't make very many. So when they do make one and it doesn't do well, that kind of just pushes everything even further into the baskets of IP that like Bandai Namco has and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it'll be probably a couple more years before we see anything else.
Hmm. So I guess to kind of walk it back now, were you into like the card games at all?
Yeah, so I guess like I mentioned in the very beginning, so I wasn't super into it, but I think like my grandfather or something, some relative that I wasn't like super close with necessarily, just like gifted my brother and I like the starter deck, just
Mhm.
like out of nowhere in like one booster pack. So we got a little bit into it, but that was pretty much the most I got into it at that time. And I don't know about you or anyone else who might be listening, but back in those days, and that's in the Pokemon card time, the Dragon Ball Z card time, I got into all those card games. But as a kid, I didn't know how to play any of those games.
Oh, well, I mean,
It was all fun.
most
Yeah.
Pokemon card collectors don't know how to play the game either.
Right. So the thing about Digimon card game is that the original one was actually pretty simplistic. There wasn't really that much to it. So I probably could have played it. I think my brother and maybe my dad and I played a couple games because you had the starter deck. So also for people who aren't aware, there was really just a starter deck and then there were boosters. That was pretty much all they had for the first series of the cards. So as long as you had the starter deck, they were all the same. There wasn't like multiple ones like Yu-Gi-Oh. There wasn't like Yugi and Pegasus and Kaiba. It was just like you had the deck and you played versus the other person who had the deck.
Yeah, you really had to be a Digimon fan to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, I always wondered because like there was so many card games from back then, but like
Yeah.
none of them had the staying power that Pokemon or like Yu-Gi-Oh or of course Magic the Gathering was in the background the whole time. But
Yeah.
I somehow didn't realize Magic the Gathering existed until like years after because I was just never a huge card game
Oh, me
guy.
either. I didn't learn about it until 2011, and I was like, wow, this has been around for that long. But to your point too, one card game that they actually had a Yu Yu Hakusho
Mhm.
card game too. I had like one pack from that, and I was like, man, they really just took any anime at the time.
There was an Inuyasha card game too.
Yeah.
I didn't have that one. I have Inuyasha playing cards. That's a thing
Okay,
apparently.
that's cool too.
Um, so that's kind of cool. So it's weird to me that like Digimon had like everything kind of
Yeah,
like any other franchise, but the thing from Digimon that I think has had like the most staying power was the animes.
I think so.
And what's crazy to me is like this was a weird era for anime where like they just like pumped these things out in a year. Because like Digimon Adventure lasted about from like 99 to 2000, and that was like 50 episodes.
It's very long. Yeah, it's very long.
Yeah, like let me do the math real. So yeah, so Digimon Adventure, the first 4 seasons, which are the ones I really know, that's basically where my information is because I never really got into anything after. The first Digimon Adventure had 54 episodes. Adventure 02 had 50.
Mm.
Tamers had 51, and then Frontier had 50. So that's over 200 episodes.
Yeah, and I think to our both of our points earlier, I think that's also why people kind of fell off as well. It was just a lot. It was so story based, like you mentioned,
Mm,
that like if you were think about it as a kid and you like just didn't watch TV for half a year or something, or did other things, did sports, you'd come back and be like, I can't follow this anymore. Like, what's the point, right? And I believe, like you said, I think it was like Adventure and Adventure 2 into Tamers into Frontiers, like right away. Like there's no
yeah.
break, right? There's no break there. It just keeps
So
going.
here. This is fun. Digimon Adventure debuted March 7th, 1999. 02 debuted April 2nd, 2000.
Yeah.
Tamers, April 1st, 2001. And Frontier, April 7th, 2002. Like this was they were one like
Yeah.
yearly animes.
And
Like
they had 50 episodes. So it means they were literally on every single week, right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
they
And
had to air every single week and they couldn't even skip a couple weeks here or there.
they
It's
also
insane.
they had to channel hop too because once Fox Kids, so I believe Fox Kids shut down right in the middle of Tamer's run because I remember
Mm.
Tamers I remember like was really hard to follow at the time because like we only got so far and then suddenly like it disappeared from Fox Kids because Fox Kids was shutting down, and then like the next thing we knew it was over on I think Disney bought the rights because they had
I, yeah, I can't remember.
because I remember it was on Jetix back when that
Yeah,
was a thing.
JetX, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember Frontiers was on Jetix all the time. Which is a shame too, because Tamers has by far the most complicated and in-depth story out of all of them.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point too, because I always thought that, once I watched Tamers, I was like, why don't more people talk about this one? But that could be a big part of it, right? If most of the kids at the time that were trying to watch it and it just like switched channels and they didn't know why, might be enough to just watch something else at that point.
I also didn't realize this until I'm looking at this list now. There was actually a pretty big, I guess Frontiers flopped pretty hard
Yeah, did.
because there was like a couple year gap before Digimon came back with Data Squad because
Yeah.
Data Squad didn't air until April 2nd, 2006. So that was at least 3 years like with no Digimon.
Yeah, and I will say that even to this day, it's very hard to even find Data Squad stuff or anything. I think that one also flopped. But I think back to your point, I think I don't know about you. You can let me know your opinion. But when I heard about Frontiers, I didn't watch very much of Tamers. Again, I just didn't have the opportunity to. But I liked the characters. I liked the Digimon. When Frontiers came out, and I found that they were like digivolving with like the humans, that
Yeah,
just completely threw me off, which is so funny in retrospect because I don't think it's that big of a deal. But at the time as a kid, I was like, that's like Power Rangers. Like, I don't want to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, it just
it
didn't feel like them.
it was very different.
Yes.
I watched the shit out of Frontiers. Um, for some reason, I really was into it, but I still like. I was always like, what threw me off was they would evolve into these weird humanoid Digimon
Yeah.
hybrid things, and they still had Digimon names, which because every Digimon name ends with Mon, which it was really weird just how they did it. But also, there was regular Digimon just walking around like all the time, so it was like this really weird like mix,
Yeah.
and I didn't I didn't dislike it, but it was really different. And what also I think is interesting is Tamers itself was also very different.
Yep.
Because so my theory on another reason why I think Tamers kind of didn't do as well as they'd hoped was the original adventure was super popular. Adventure 2, apparently, I've learned in retrospect, was not like that popular.
Interesting. I
Like
would guess that that would be the most popular, but
I it's I've always wondered that. And I think my theory on it is I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that like the original cast was there,
yeah,
but they got nerfed like in the first episode. Like where it's like this the quote unquote villain, air quotes here, has his magical FU digivice that's just like no evolving, like you can't evolve. It's like okay, so it's like, oh great, the original cast can't do fuck all for like the first half of this series. That's great. Oh, and the new cast, they're not that interesting
yeah,
initially. I'll
right,
say.
right. And I think maybe a part of that too is that yeah, I feel like Adventure 2 you kind of want to be invested in Adventure 1 to care about Adventure 2, right? Because it
Hmm.
kind of is a continuation of the story for some like, part of it. So that I think also helps because you got to remember with cartoons especially and stuff like that and anime, like kids are coming in and out, right? Like once you get to a certain age, like I always think about that. By Tamers and Frontiers, I think as a kid I felt like I was too old for that type of show, right?
Hmm.
So like to have a show that you need to have kids from before be interested in the old show and the new show, I think is more difficult. So maybe that's why too. I don't know.
Yeah, because I will say, Zero Two is very much a bottom heavy and like series because like the first half is kind of in retrospect I like it, but I remember at the time it was very slow
It's very slow. Yeah.
because it's like none of them are basically the entire original cast is there, which is kind of a tease, and all their Digimon are still around,
Yep.
but they're not allowed to evolve. So it's like you're not going to see Greymon. You're not going to
No.
because it was basically like they could only stay at rookie. They couldn't go to champion. It's champion, right?
Yeah. Champion. Yep.
All right. So they couldn't evolve to champion, which was annoying because it's like it's great. It's like cool. Agumon's here, but he can't do anything, and
He's
it's
kind of
fine.
just chilling. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, Agumon's a bro in the first two series. I love Agumon, but then they come up with this weird. It was clearly to sell toys, but like they came up with this whole armor digivolving, where it's like they
Yeah.
find this random stone. It's like, oh, it's like they can put armor on, and it's like that's cool, I guess. um, the problem is it got boring. I think that was like my real like issue with it.
Yeah. I think the problem that Digimon always faces is that there are a lot of similarities to like even Power Rangers or something. It's like, okay, they're not going to be able to beat it. Then they're going to Digivolve and then they're going to do it or whatever. And then Adventure 2, for example, you'd say like, okay, you have Flame Dramon and you have Magnamon or whatever. So like if one version isn't able to do it, they'll just go to the other one, right? So
Hmm.
you always have some combination of that, or like how many of them will it require for them to be able to do it? Like, oh, their friends got separated. Okay, so now there's only two of them. That's not enough. They need at least three. So I think it two definitely fell into that a lot.
Because
And then yeah,
the second half, like eventually, like the first big bad who
yeah, we don't
becomes
need to
what
say, but
yeah, he eventually becomes one of the main. I mean, big spoiler
correct.
log, spoiler
Yeah,
log
well,
at this
yeah,
point.
20 years
um,
old.
I mean, let's face it, like it's a GNC show. We spoil everything.
Yeah,
So the main villain becomes one of the main cast members, of course, because you could see that coming from a mile away.
he looks
Um,
exactly the same. He's got
he
the
looks the
Superman
same.
Clark Kent.
He has a Digimon who he treats like shit for the first half of the series, but
Yeah,
that's besides the point. So once he gets defeated, he stops doing his fu no evolving shit, and it's like, oh cool, we can all evolve again. But then like the coolest thing to me was like, so at that point you only know Vmon for his two armor Digimon forms. And then it's suddenly like, oh, he can evolve the champion. He's got his own cool form. Like
yeah,
that's fucking sweet. And
yeah.
it's like the show just kind of revived from there. And I was like, this is fucking sweet.
Yeah, I will say that one of my last comments I feel like about Adventure 2, and again, this kind of follows through on everything Digimon related, is so disappointing that with shows like that you always just end up getting like the really cool evolutions are maybe for like a couple of the characters and you don't get it for everybody.
Oh yeah, like how
Man, I hate
only
that trope so much.
only only Ty and uh
Matt,
forgetting
Matt.
only Ty and Matt got to go to Mega.
Yep.
Like, which I mean was awesome when they did their Mega evolutions, because it was like that really bad early 90s CG, but as a kid you thought it was great.
Yeah, and
Um
then it's pretty much the same thing. It's like Davis and Ken do the Dramon, and then Dramon has two forms as well. And you're like, man, that would be so cool to see. Like, well, I mean, they do get one form. All the other people get one form. But I'm like, couldn't we like also cross some people, like switch up the partners? Like there's so much stuff they could have done with that. But of
Ty, I
course they
mean,
didn't do it.
even going back to the original show, like I still always like the first big evolution for a character to me was always like the like best episodes. Like to me, like original adventure, like one of the most iconic episodes was the infamous Ty like basically forces Agumon to evolve to
Yeah.
ultimate, and we get the first edition of an alternate like
Yep.
ultimate form with Skull Greymon.
Skull Greymon.
That was fucking terrifying as a kid. Like
It was, and it was so good they used it in Tamers as well.
oh, Tamers they took. See, it was terrifying in Adventure. Tamers
Yeah.
took it to fucking like
He
100.
was like a nuclear bomb or something. Yeah.
Well, what was I'm forgetting the name of the Pokemon in Tamers.
I think it's like Mega Dramon or something like that. But he's basically like has like a biohazard symbol on his chest or something, and he's
Yeah,
some
he
kind of
was
like bomb. Yeah.
he was a computer virus Pokemon essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was like such a cool thing. And then like once because he like did it out of anger, that's what caused the dark ultimate form. But then like when they when he finally came to like realization, then we got like Metal Greymon, which was like fucking insane. I remember at the time.
Yeah, it was the thing at the time. I loved Skull Greymon too. I think like like the episode was cool itself, but I always wanted them to like do something more with that. Like maybe he could, like Ty could unlock some like good version of Skull Greymon just because his design was so good. Like love
Well,
it.
I always remember later on there was that episode where like Ken was shooting out the weird like dark spiral things, and they captured Agumon, and they were trying to force him to become Metal Greymon, but he became Skull Greymon because they did it the wrong way, which was I was like, oh, that's a cool throwback.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I was always bummed though that like the rest of the cast didn't get mega forms, even though they technically had them if you look through the card game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's the disappointing thing, and I think, like I mentioned, I feel like a lot of anime will do stuff like that too. Like, I mean, going to Dragon Ball Z or whatever too, right? Like Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, it gets way too overwhelming if you try to do that for like every single character, which is unfortunate, but
Oh yeah,
just is what it is.
I still say that like the best episodes were when a character unlocked the like mega form or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the first time Patamon evolved into Angemon, it was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was a cool episode. And because with the Kari. Yeah, Kari. I always get Kyrie, like Kyrie from Kingdom Hearts.
It was
I believe it's Kari, right? His sister.
Yeah.
Like with her, it was totally different because of the whole like Gatomon thing, which is funny too, because everybody assumes she's a champion, but she's actually ultimate. Or rookie and champion, or sorry. No, I think it's actually the other way around. Whatever. Anyway. But yeah, for same thing with like Patamon, where TK is like, because he's even more of like a side character because he's just like a kid or whatever. So then when he finally gets his first, it's like pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was like just the tag along kid for the first series, but then he becomes one of the mains in in 02 because
he's all grown up.
Yeah, TK and Kari become the bonus like additions to that group, and then they also get their own unique. They got their special digivices with their like armor evolutions. It was such a weird.
Yeah, it was so weird. And you know what's funny? I just need to make this comment because I think it's funny. Going back to your cartoon episode of Rugrats and the Rugrats grown up, it's pretty much like Digimon into Digimon grown up with TK and Kari.
handled better, thankfully, than All Grown Up
Yeah, yeah,
was.
yeah.
But
But there were some parts that were just like really funny because they're
oh
like
yeah,
probably like, how do we age these characters up just like a couple years and make them seem like interesting?
yeah. Um, Another funny thing too was like, oh yeah, this always confused the hell out of me. So like, Ken had the whole like no evolving thing,
Yeah.
but Godemon was already an alt like a champion.
Yeah,
Like that made no sense to me.
that was the thing. I think that was just the most hand wavy thing too, because it's just like whatever. At this
Even
point, we screwed it up, so it's just like
yeah,
just leave it.
it's
Cats are
like
adorable, so
her default form was just the champion one for some
yeah.
reason. Um, so before we go full on into Tamers, I have to ask. We can't not talk about it.
Okay.
The movie.
Okay, let me just be really honest about the movie. And you can make fun of me all you want, but the only thing I remember, I saw it as a kid, of course.
Mhm.
I believe I didn't see it in theaters. I think I saw it when it was on video, like VHS, at a friend's house. But the Angela
Yep,
Anaconda thing,
yep.
that's like literally the only, like, I can't even remember the storyline of, but basically, I guess for people who don't know too, it was Digimon movie is like 3 movies in Japan that
Yeah,
they just like combined into one movie.
it's 3 OVAs they
Yeah,
very poorly tied
very poorly
together.
put together. And it's funny, I'll have to watch it soon because I don't even remember that transition of them going like putting it together because I
I
haven't watched it in probably 20 years.
I have
But
the original DVD still. One of these days, I'm gonna have to do like a movie night on the server or something where we all
oh
have
yeah,
to
that would
watch
be
it.
great. And the soundtrack is good too. I remember that the soundtrack for Digimon movie was
Fuck,
good.
fucking Smash Mouth,
Yeah.
1 week, like Bare Naked Ladies. So much.
Oh
It's
man, it
so
reminds me of the Jimmy Neutron movie soundtrack too, or like the Shrek soundtrack, like just
it's
weird songs at the
even
time.
better because it's like 90s as fuck, but I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, that's pretty much that's honestly all I remember. And the poster, because the poster is really cool. You get to see, I think Magnemon's on there, right? And
yeah,
then
the
yeah,
cool golden
right.
Vlon transformation thing.
Yeah, you get to see him and then like but of course what people pointed out much later is that yeah, like Terriermon and Lopmon are like totally different. And
Yeah.
I forget exactly, but yeah, it's kind of like a spoiler in a way for Tamers, but of course it's not nearly it's not really quite right. They didn't really work it out yet. They didn't design the characters yet. So
Because I'm glad you brought up the Angelina Anaconda thing. Because holy shit, does that date this movie so
yeah,
bad? It's so sad that this movie, the first thing anybody like, it's not just you, like legit
it's
everybody all
everybody. Yeah.
brings up the Angelina Anaconda thing. Because god damn it, in the theater, I saw this in the theater, and holy fuck, like that was like the worst part because you had to sit through that shit um before it even got to the movie. Like there's I don't know if they're true, but there's reports that apparently broke up a marriage at one point.
Oh
Like,
god. I remember that show being on at the time, and I was just freaked out by it because I just thought the
I
animation style was really freaky.
I
Yeah, and
don't
creepy.
understand how that show lasted as long as it did because that's like something you'd find on like a YouTube channel now. Like this uncanny, just
Yeah,
ugh. Like for anyone who doesn't know about Angelina
just look it up.
Anaconda, look that up. It is the most horrifying
Yeah, then
show I
blame
think of.
Joel for telling you to look it up because yeah.
This is like the 7th podcast where we've said look up Angelina Anaconda at this point.
Oh
Uh,
man.
the movie itself, though, like I used to rent, so I saw it in theaters, and then I would rent the VHS from Blockbuster. Like, you remember back in like the Blockbuster for the kids
Yeah.
the kids in the back there.
Yeah.
Did you do you remember like you would have that one thing that you would always take out every time you went to Blockbuster, regardless of how many times you saw it?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was like Shrek or something. I don't know, man. It was like,
For me, it was always either it was Digimon the movie or it was like the Yu-Gi-Oh box set, which was like the one where they go into the virtual like game, not the virtual world that happened later on. The game one
oh
was in the
yeah, yeah,
first season. Like that was bizarre. Like it was always those two, and I would watch that movie on like repeat. So like I have like these horrible memories of the original Digimon movie, despite kind of liking it. Like I still like the movie, even though it's kind of a mess.
yeah. it's definitely three different little movies. So
Yeah,
I just am so curious why they decided to do it like that, but whatever, that's beside the point. And yeah,
I remember the opening one is like it's this weird like origin story
it
for like
is.
the
Yeah,
Digimon where they had a different Agumon at one point, which I still find bizarre.
yeah,
Um,
very
and then
strange.
there, and then the second one is the most famous one where they go into the computer world and stuff, and that's where you get the big the first fusion evolution where um War Greymon and Metal Garurumon fuse, and you get, is it Omnimon?
Omnimon, yeah,
Yeah, that was iconic. Then the third part of the movie is like the part where it just completely like the first two I could kind of see how these fit together.
yeah.
The third one barely fits together with the first one.
I think that makes sense because, to be honest, the only one I remember is the middle one because like I probably saw it like a couple times.
I think it's
Yeah,
called My War Game in Japan.
yeah, I
I want
think
to say
so.
I
But they
forget
wouldn't
the
call it that here.
yeah, I forget the name of the third part. The third part is other than the Smash Mouth scene at the end. I really don't remember anything about. Well, then the we got the sneak peek into Tamers with
Yeah,
uh the
kind of like
couple.
fake Lopmon, fake Terriermon thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. And I don't know if you remember this, but they did have promo cards for the movie as well. Pretty much all the key Digimon and stuff, which were
Hmm.
really cool. You could still get them. At least a couple years ago, I bought a bunch of them. They're very cheap, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, so I had to pick up a Magnamon one, as
nice.
well as a few other.
So we've talked pretty much all about the first two series. I want to get into Tamers just because
Yeah,
Tamers is such a weird oddity of a series. Like in hindsight, like it was directed by Yukio Kazizawa, and he was known for some really dark shit, like in the anime world. So like when he like if you look into his like filmography of animes he's done, and then you put Tamers next to it, you're like, what? Um, yeah, Tamers. I have to ask, like, what was your thoughts on Tamers when you first saw it, and like you just had
yeah,
all the new models and characters?
yeah. I think for me, like I said, so when I was younger, when it was first airing and everything, I saw the characters like at a friend's house or something. I thought they were cool. I think the designs of like Terriermon, Renamon, and Guilmon are all really cool. They're all different. The colors are cool, right? Because you got green, red, yellow. I thought it just like helped it kind of stand out. And again, I didn't watch that much of it. And then when I finally like ran through the entire series, I guess that would have been probably like 2015 or something as well. And man, you really realize like how much more in depth Tamers is compared to the other previous seasons.
Oh yeah,
Because I mean, there were weird things which a lot of people talk about. Like the game starts off very card heavy because they were really pushing this new type of Digimon cards at the time.
hmm.
So it was all like, oh, use this card, or I'm trying to get this card. So it was very much like, I don't know if it coincided that much with Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe. I'm trying to figure out why exactly they decided to do that, but it was a thing.
Um, what I find the most interesting about Tamers is it is a series that is very much split into three distinct portions.
Yeah.
Because there's the first portion where they're kind of like it's kind of like getting the gang together where they're all kind of separated. Like I know like Rika is like super emo and she wants nothing to do with
Yep.
anyone. Takato is kind of like pathetic and he has to like learn. And then who was the third boy? I forget his name.
Henry, I think his name is.
I forgot they had weird
Yeah. Weird
American
name. Of
names.
course, weird translated name. Yeah.
Yeah. He was kind of just there. Like he had a because Rika and Henry had already had their Digimon. Takato has to draw a picture of one and then shove it through his Digivice, and that somehow
Yeah.
he brought Guillaumon to life. Like it is the weirdest. Like it's cool, but it was like so weird. Like he because like that became like a running theme where it's like he wanted to get him to evolve, so then he just drew a picture of his evolved form, and then he couldn't get him to de-evolve, and it was a whole arc for a while.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I will say I think that the actual like character progression and everything in the series is very well done,
Oh
which
yeah,
maybe goes back to what were you saying, the director. I think it's just it's thought of a little bit more like more than just like a kids anime. They actually
it
like put some
is.
good character development in there and some
It's
like
very
more mature
maturely written.
themes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's like the first half of the series, the whole getting the gang all together, because there's the main three, but then there's also a bunch of stragglers who kind of acquire Digimon over the
Yeah.
course of the series, including one very tragically. Um, and that scene still makes people cry. I swear. Um, and then like they eventually, the first half takes place in the real world, and then suddenly, like halfway through the series, they get sent into the digital world, and it's kind of like we're doing um we're doing adventure again in the middle of this already going series.
Yeah.
Um, that whole thing is like bizarre because that's where all like the really weird fantastical stuff happens. Like, and they're kind of all working together now. I mean, there was the whole mind fuck of the dark evolution, which broke the planet. Like that was great.
Yeah. I love when they do stuff like that.
Uh, how shocked were you when during Leomon's death?
Well, so the unfortunate thing is, like, by this time I had already heard that they pretty much get rid of Leomon in every series, and it's a
Mhm.
shame. I really like Leomon. I think his design is pretty cool, and I always just want him to live. And shout outs to a few like later on series when he gets to live a little bit longer. But yeah, so I kind of knew what was going to happen. But man, they still pull at your heartstrings with that one. Like I feel
Well,
like that might be the worst one.
in this one, it was so bad too because not only was it like a Leomon death thing, but also he had a whole arc in like the first series where he was a loner and he didn't want anything
Yeah.
to do with them, and then he gets paired with the trainer Jerry, and they have this whole build up thing, and then like finally when they're really sinking together, he just gets straight up just murdered, and not only does he get killed, he gets fucking absorbed and like just erased, and it's like,
Yeah, it's so sad. But that's
man.
the thing. That's why the show is interesting too. Is like they spend all that time building it up, and then they're just like, nope,
And
done.
then what makes it even more interesting is the guy that the Digimon Pokemon, Jesus Christ, the
No, stop.
Digimon. It's all a conspiracy, man. The Digimon that kills him is Devimon, I think, Devilmon or whatever. Who starts out pathetic and then becomes like this weird biker dude, which was cool as fuck as a kid. Um,
Oh, Beelzemon and Imp
Beelzemon.
Mom.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great story too because that's another like I think like anti-heroes are a big thing now in media, but I feel like at that time wasn't as much. And that's pretty much what he is. He starts being like the most obnoxious character you could ever imagine because he's so annoying in the first
oh
arc.
yeah. Well, he
And
was
then
a
yeah,
Digimon whose two trainers were annoying little shits, and
yeah,
he ran off, and then he's basically pathetic the entire series, and then he
becomes a total badass,
yeah
pretty much.
he gets he fuses with that motorcycle and becomes like this badass, and then he becomes literally the most hated character in the series by killing Leomon, and then
Yeah.
he has a full on redemption arc.
That's the thing. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's like he goes from killing the most like because I feel like Leomon even in Digimon represents like the most like honest integrity like righteous character like he kind of like because he's always like leading like the Digimon rebellion I feel like so he's like he's like lawful good and then they just always have to yeah destroy that with some kind of but also Beelzemon is pretty much like the devil so it kind of made sense if you think about it right
Hmm.
so
Well, what's interesting too is I completely forgot. I just remembered it now. The death of Leomon is what leads to Takato forcing metal. I forget the basically
the evil yeah
Guillomon's because rather than like the ultimate, it was his mega form this time around.
right
He forces him to evolve into that abomination, like the most terrifying thing I think in the series at that point.
and that's pretty cool too because I like the idea of Tai trying to train Agumon too hard and it going wrong, but like from Takato's side, it was almost like pure emotion taking over,
It
right?
was
Of him being like he just didn't know what to do at that point.
it was literally pure hatred that
Yeah,
like in
right.
his like when he forced him to evolve, and I think that's what caused it because it literally almost breaks the digital world with how catastrophic he is. Like it's so catastrophic that it actually breaks Staccato's Digivice, and he actually gets
Yeah,
gifted the golden one later on, which was kind of cool. But then, so what's crazy is we mentioned in Frontiers. I think part of what inspired Frontiers was actually the mega evolutions from Tamers.
I think so because they're very humanoid-ish.
Well, because they fuse with their Digimon, which is
Yeah.
honestly even stranger now that I think about it.
Yeah, and if you, I mean, honestly, if you go back and watch it too, it's kind of weird to see those sequences. Um, but yeah, I think so. I think maybe I don't know, maybe they got some good feedback from that. Like people thought it was cool, but I feel like by
I
the
mean,
time they actually turned it into a full show, it was a little bit weird.
it was cool at the time because I was wondering how they were going to change it up this time around.
Yeah.
And because I mean the mega evolutions, like the three main mega evolutions are probably my favorite three in like the franchise because they're just so cool. Like because they're
Yeah.
like these weird human hybrid things. Because I also remember because Henry's like the was like massive, like for no
Oh
reason.
yeah, his is like one of the, I think one of like the largest Digimon. It's like so insanely big, the Mega Gargomon one. Yeah.
But what's great is he still has Gargabon's voice, so it doesn't fit the model at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and then after that, they finally escape the digital world and get back to the real world. But they brought along like legitimate destruction, like the devil itself, essentially. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a good like lesson too, where again it all goes back to like, okay, you can do cool stuff and save the world, but there's consequences, and I feel like all the themes go together actually like really well with Tamers.
what's crazy too is like the D Reaper arc to me like is still like that is some dark shit.
Yeah,
Like it's this giant blob monster that's literally eating the real world because it was a computer program designed to erase data. There's a weird backstory, but it's like taking over bodies and stuff, and like they can't touch it because it'll erase them. Um,
yeah,
it's just bizarre, and like the way that the final climax too. Like if you want to talk about having a fucking downer ending to an anime, the ending to Tamers is literally the biggest like slap in the face like ever.
it's crazy, and I think Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth has like a very similar like digital villain and stuff too, with just like cataclysmic failure. I think it's just a lot more fun to play around in that space because of Digimon being so oriented in like this, digital world, and people are always paranoid like now about AI and like things
Mm.
taking over, like the digital world taking over. So I think it just lends itself a lot more towards these like dark stories, but could be realistic. You know what I mean? Like that whole like Black Mirror vibe where technology goes wrong and the internet goes wrong. It's pretty cool though. I like it.
You know what? One of my favorite aspects, which is partially thanks to the medium at the time and just like how like early 2000s CG was pretty bad.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts about the D Reaper is it's completely like CG in the animation, but it looks so uncanny. And I think that actually is perfect because it's
Yeah.
literally a thing that's not supposed to be there. And it literally fits like everything. Like it's like there's this giant thing that is literally engulfing the entire city and it just looks fucked up. Like,
Yeah, people can say what they will about that like early CGI and stuff, especially with like a show like Beast Wars or something where it just looks so bad. But
oh
there are
yeah.
definitely good instances of it. And even going back to the Digimon games like World 2 and 3, they have some really cool CGI intro screens that I feel like they hold up pretty well. I mean, there are definitely certain things that I feel like CGI, that era of it, that actually hold up and look good to this day. So
Do you mind if we take a pause real quick? I just bathroom.
yeah, yeah, sure. Go for it.
And we're back. Sorry about that. So we were discussing the uncanniness of like the CGI back in the day, but also how it kind of worked.
Yeah.
Um, so there was movies for Tamers, I remember. Do you remember watching those? Because I remember they kind of existed, but they weren't hyped at all.
I watched one about a train. I don't know if that was that one of them.
Yeah, it was the Runaway Locomon because they
Yeah.
train Digimon.
Yeah, that
Um,
exists, and that will come up again in Frontier. But I did watch that one, but again, that was much later. That was like a couple years ago. I watched it. I don't know. Do you know how they aired at the time?
I think it was just a thing that aired
Just on TV?
on TV, and I
Oh,
think you could
okay.
find it later. Because I remember seeing it randomly one day on like a YouTube clip. I was like, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, I had only heard about it a couple years ago, and that's why I watched it. And I think there's a couple. There's at least two, right? For Tamers,
Hmm.
I think.
There's two for Tamers, and there's, I believe, one for Frontiers as well.
Okay.
Um, so before we move on, do you want to have any other thoughts on Tamers? I know Tamers is
Oh,
arguably the best, probably series.
yeah, it's interesting, and people kind of consider it as the best. I guess one other comment I wanted to say too. We didn't mention Kalumon at all.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, he's kind of important.
One of the weirdest things of the series, it's like, yeah, he's, I guess we can spoil it, but he's basically a Digimon, but at the same time, he's not. He appears in like the whole series. It's a whole big thing. But yeah, I don't know what your opinion is on Kalumon. I think he's adorable, but I think he was kind of annoying for a lot, a lot of the show.
Yeah, he's a great design
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
Digimon. His whole thing is bizarre because he's literally like it's kind of implied throughout the whole series, but you find out at the end he's actually the key to evolution, which
which is
is
weird. It's a little bit corny, that part.
yeah, it was a weird thing. Like it's like if he's because when he gets captured, it makes evolving hard at times, and then
Right.
oh yeah, we also didn't talk about there's like the random goth girl that appears in the middle of the series who like has the Doberman who like commits like heroic suicide to like allow them to digivolve again in the real world.
Yeah, and they have like Ryu who has like the Cyber Dramon and stuff. They have like a bunch of cool side tamers, which is nice.
Hmm.
But I think they may have done that too, just because they were just focusing on three, where usually like these shows they have like six protagonists.
I
But
think
yeah,
too, like the other big thing was the D Reaper arc was so massive, like that, like
yeah,
while they're doing their main thing, they needed to like do other things in the corners all over the place. Oh,
yeah,
actually, we should talk about Ryu because that was another like
yeah.
confusing mess that like I feel bad for Americans because they were never going to understand any of that.
Yeah, and I just learned about this a couple of years ago too. Do you want to explain?
So he was a tie-in to a bunch of Wonder Swan games
Yes.
that
So
we
we
never
never
got.
got any Wonder Swan games over here, and he's the main character of a couple Wonder Swan games.
And he just shows up randomly in the Digimon world during the like what during the middle arc of the series,
Yeah.
like the Digimon world arc, and like he just has like a Digimon. And he can all he. So it was interesting to me because the main three could do their like fusion uh evolutions. I forget what they called it. It was like because when they did the evolutions, they always had these cool like card swipe moments, which were they were clearly just trying to appeal to the card fans at the time. I also feel like they were trying to appeal to Beyblade for some reason.
Yeah, I think Tamers kind of falls in the category of just trying to compete with other like kind of kids anime at the time. But yeah, I can't remember the name. It was like D. There was like D Terminal or like there's some weird like I forget
I
exactly
I
what it
know
was. Yeah.
I know Ultimate was Matrix Digivolution. I can't remember
Yeah,
what
they
the
renamed it for like no reason, and then they just like removed that from the canon afterwards, and were just like, no, it's Champion Ultimate Mega. Sorry,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, it was some bizarre shit. But I remember it's like it made sense that the main three could go to Mega, but then it's like this random guy that shows up
yeah,
can also go Mega, and it's like who is this guy? And like why do we have to care?
yeah. And there were like, I think there were even like comments that he makes, like his personality is really weird again, and you're just kind of like, well, who is this guy? But it makes sense, I guess, if you have like, I guess I don't know. I haven't played the games because they're in Japanese, but
Yeah. I always
yeah,
forget about that. And then like you brought because like I forgot about Ryu existing in here,
yeah,
and then you mentioned him. And at first I thought you were talking about one of the other guys. I'm like, oh wait a minute, we have to talk about this.
yeah.
Um God, I love Tamers, but it has a lot of holes in it now that I think about it.
It does, but I think overall, like you mentioned, we can tie it back to. I think it probably is the best one. At least, I think I said on the roundtable, I would recommend that if you wanted to get into the series as a whole, would say start there think it's the strongest anime, the most likely that you'll want to watch it compared to
I
the other ones.
I will say, like, I think original adventure is probably the easiest to watch.
Right.
But I think Tamers has the best. Like, if you
More
can,
interesting.
yeah, Tamers is honestly three different shows combined into one because each arc could honestly be standalone.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the downer ending too is like the biggest, like, kind of like reason why I think it's such an effective show because it's like the whole show is like adrenaline the entire time, and then it's just like it ends and you're like, wow.
Yeah, the pacing is good. I think we should mention that too, because like Adventure, I don't remember Adventure 2 as much pacing wise,
Oh,
but
pacing in
Adventure,
Adventure 2 is
man,
horrible.
it's 50 episodes, and it's like it'll just be like one episode. Oh, we run into another Digimon that we need to destroy, and then we do it, and then it's like, okay, next episode, somebody else shows up, and they do exactly the same thing, you know. So
Yeah,
if you want something a little bit more with more substance and a little bit more character development, definitely start with Tamers for sure.
yeah. God, the emotional moments in that show too, like just that one. There is moments in Tamers that just pull at the heartstrings.
Yeah.
So, Frontiers.
Let's talk about it.
You ever just got on a train and then suddenly ended up in a virtual world for some reason?
Yeah, and let me say too, I kind of alluded to it, but I definitely skipped this one. I don't think I saw any episodes of this as a kid when it first came out. And even when I got back into it, I had been like reading comments and a lot of people trash on this one, but a lot of people, it is like their favorite one also. It's very, very polarizing.
It
But
it has a really cool story,
yeah.
but
Well,
the cool. I mean, it's not Tamers, but it is still better. It's more in depth than Adventure 2, I'd say.
I will say for Digimon lore, it's the best. It explains a lot of the digital world
Hmm.
lore and how things came to be, which I think is cool.
I think the unique thing about this series in particular is I believe the compared to the first three, this one pretty much exclusively is in the digital world.
Yes, I believe so. Just like the first episode, they're not pretty much, I
The
think.
first episode, the final episode, and then there's this one weird episode
Oh,
where
they go back or something, I think, right? Is that so?
Takuya goes because all these fucking
Yeah.
why is Davis the one with the normal name?
I don't
That's what
know.
I want to know.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
know.
Takuya gets like he has like his angst moment, and then he gets on a train and goes back to the real world. But for some reason, he's a Digimon in the real world, and it's like what?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there was a weird thing, but yeah, Frontiers also like starts off with like getting the band together, but
Yep.
they hate each other even more than they did in Tamers, which is bizarre.
Yeah, and they're still decent. I will say Frontiers definitely got a good amount of character development as well, which you would hope because the characters are so annoying in the beginning.
Oh yeah, because
But
they all suck at the starts.
yeah, but I think Takuya is my like least favorite main protagonist because I just don't think he's that interesting, unfortunately.
No, he's like he's basically all the least interesting aspects of Tai and like
Yeah,
Staccato and
and as annoying as Davis.
Dave. Yeah, like
Staccato is probably my favorite. I don't know. I'm not sure, but
Tai and Staccato are both really good
yeah, I
because
think they're
they both literally kind of have the same arcs, which kind of makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I think the problem is like Takuya is supposed to be like the main character here, but
Yeah, he ends up
what's
not being.
yeah who's the secondary in this series? I forget his name.
Koji.
Koji ends up being pretty much the main
Yeah,
character of the story, especially with
his brother.
his brother who is essentially the Ken or like the guy who
Yeah,
is a villain at first and then like joins the team and then dies tragically in the final battle, which is great.
but I will
Um,
say I think that was handled a little bit better in this one. I
mm,
thought that Koichi, that's the brother's name.
yes,
Because I didn't know anything about this series, so I didn't know that that was going to happen. Like I didn't know I knew there was another character. I didn't know how he'd get introduced. So that was actually pretty cool.
Well,
So I would say that's at
especially
least that.
especially because the back, so there's some deep backstories to these characters, which I do appreciate.
Yeah.
Like, because we go through every character. So the funnest one thing I do like is rather than having the one character go through the angst arc, they all go through an angst arc at one point in this series. Um, and the big thing with Koji and Koichi is they're apparently brothers, but they've been separated all their lives, so they don't actually know each other. And they were actually, it's weird how they were apparently running into each other. And the whole reason Koichi gets like separated from them is because he got into an accident before he got sent to the digital world, which is dark. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
yeah, and I believe it's yeah, like they're raised by different families or something like that, right?
Mm, yes, and they kind of connect in the digital world, and then he gets killed basically in the final battle, and then but he's not technically dead. He's just
Digital dead? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. He's still alive in the real world, but I don't understand what happens to their bodies in the real world when they're in the. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know.
the whole way they explain it, but what also I found interesting was like the main like the big good of this series. Like he appears super early on, and then gets fucking like taken out literally within the same episode he gets introduced.
What, Serafimon?
Yeah, because he's the because Serafimon, his female counterpart,
Or yeah, or Fanimon.
and then the guy who was the villain of the movie is
Yeah,
also the villain here.
and yeah, I forget too. He's like Kirpymon, but then he also has another name too. I forget.
Yeah, the
'Cause-
dark version, like corrupted
yeah,
version.
yeah. But yeah, like there's all this like angel lore, like the Digimon angels or whatever, and then you have Lucamon, and yeah, it gets complicated. But again, this is like now kind of accepted as like Digimon lore, which they didn't do a lot of like lore building. Things were just never really explained. I will say something I think is really cool about this series. When I first started watching it, I had really low expectations. The first couple episodes are really cool because they're going around from like town to town, and you get to see all these cool like towns of specific Digimon that like interact with each other, like Bergamons, which are like little hamburgers. And you get to see all that kind of interaction. So again, I feel like that really builds like the digital world lore really well. And you get to actually see how the Digimon exist when they're not like battling each other. Because that's pretty much all you see up to that point, right?
Yeah, like I won't lie. Like whenever like a classic Digimon appeared, like in the background, I've ever always been like, "Ooh, it's him! It's him over there!"
Yeah, exactly. They did a really good job in this one, like showing some background characters of old Digimon that you remember and bringing in some new ones and tying them together. And that I'm a fan of. I think that's probably one of the strong suits of this one. What makes me the most sad is just that it's very much like Power Ranger.
Yeah,
You've got light, dark, fire, ice, electric, whatever. I think that's pretty much it. And then like they look like Power Rangers kind of.
and then they also have the Psycho Rangers because there's like a
Yeah,
lore thing where like half of the spirits got kidnapped by like the dark side, but they
yep,
don't have human hosts. They're just like animated in the dark world because they eventually capture all of those spirits as well,
yeah. They like
and
absorb them, I guess, or something. Yeah,
which is bizarre. But then like one thing I thought that was really weird is like to get to their mega forms, they have to steal everyone else's powers. So like
yeah.
so only the main two can like actually do anything during the final fight.
But I guess at least in that way, it explains why they only ever do the main two. You know what I mean? Like at
True.
least it's some lore that's like, oh, okay, that's why they can't do it, right? Because otherwise, you just feel bad for them. But yeah, you know what I thought you were gonna mention? Tell me if you remember this. In the very first episode, there's a bunch of other kids too, and then those other kids ended up going to the digital world too, and they end up like fighting with them or what? Do you remember that part?
I do remember that because they appear way later in the
Way
series,
later in the series, like halfway through.
but they haven't done anything during their time there, so they're all completely unaware. And I remember there's a point where like one of them gets hit because in this world like they're all data now, and whenever you get injured, fractal code, as they called it,
Yeah.
gets like knocked out of you, and a villain can scan that and just erase you from existence, which is so fucking dark.
Yeah, it's dark.
But I remember like one of the other kids that's there, he just gets like punched in the chest and his code gets dropped out, and the villain's like, "I'm gonna scan you and take your
That's exactly what happens. Yeah, it's so
yeah."
funny. You think there's
It's
going to be this like huge like feud between them, and then it's like nothing. It's like plot death characters.
also because like the first half of the series, it's split in two as well.
Yeah.
Um, the first half is all around the angel stuff, and then after the angels are defeated, this giant ball of data falls into the fucking core of the planet and brings this other guy out, and he's like, "I'm just gonna be a dick for no reason."
Yeah.
um, and I'm gonna steal all the code from the planet and destroy the digital planet. Um, so that
Yeah.
because there's one episode where forget his name, the fat one who likes to scam people,
JP.
JP. He's like, I'm just gonna move around the city's floor so the fractal code is all distributed in weird ways and they can't scan it in one go. But then they take so long fighting that the guy literally just puts it together and scans it anyways. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing that this series didn't do it that well is like the characters. Cause like, okay, even if you go to Adventure, right? You got Joe, he's the scared one, you know, who does whatever. You got Izzy, who's the tech whiz. Like they don't really have any of that. They're just all like nothing. Like they're all just like chaotic and like annoying kids.
Like
So I feel
they
like that kind
all
of hurts it.
it's annoying too because they do all go through arcs. Like
They
there
do.
one thing I really like is there are multiple points. Like there's actually a point where they all get sucked into one of the fucking villain Pokemon, and it's like this giant
Digimon.
it,
I know, I got you.
conspiracy man. Where they get sucked into one of the villain Digimon, and like there's like an entire like arc where they're just going through these different like ports like throughout this Digimon, and they're all separated, and they have to like go through these like face offs, and then they all finally escape, and it's like, surprise, I'm actually a villain, you got to fight me. And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
what?
they end up fighting the evil versions of their Digimon or whatever too, which is kind of or like the shadow versions.
Yeah.
Um,
Such a weird.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
think it took too much like inspiration from other things that were going on at the time, like you know Power Rangers, this and that. They really just tried to smash it together, and it just didn't
it's
necessarily get there as well. But
it's just so drastically different too, which
yeah,
is like, I get why it kind of killed the franchise. Like it was definitely an example of a franchise killer for a while there
went
because
too far. Yeah,
it killed the anime for 3 years. The games were kind of existing still, but they were so obscure that like literally that's why they're all expensive as shit.
yep.
And then like did the Tamagotchis just kind of disappear, or did they still make those?
They make them now, but they disappeared for a while. They released them with all four shows, the original series,
Mhm.
all different versions based off whatever they had in the show, and then they pretty much stopped after that, and then came back with Data Squad, but like almost nobody bought those, so they're super rare.
True.
And then again dropped off, and then like in 2020 or so, they started releasing them again, re-releasing like the old ones and new versions of all the old ones too. So
Okay. I will say, like at some point down the line, because I'm such a nerd, one of my favorite things is like every series got new Digivices.
yeah.
Like they were all unique. I want to collect some of those, like just to have. Like
No, you
'cause
should. They're really cool. And like I said, they've made new versions of a lot of them.
oh yeah.
And so you have all the cool like LED lights and stuff on them now instead of like the really, you know,
I think
bad screens and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think 02 might be my favorite like Digivice like
Yeah, I think
design.
so too. It is mine as well. I don't know why, because I didn't even watch that much of that one back in the day, but I think it's the best.
Yeah.
The Frontier ones are actually pretty cool too. I like
They
those.
are.
Well,
I mean, even the Tamers ones are kind of cool. They're a bit basic, but
they're a bit basic, but yeah.
now before we, because I do want to, I know you don't have a lot to say about them, but like I want to touch on Tribe briefly.
Sure.
But before we get there, one thing we kind of glossed over is like the theme song is one of the most iconic anime theme songs of all time.
Yes. And to also add to that, my wife is from Brazil, and she knows the Brazilian version by heart, like the Portuguese version.
That's
And
amazing.
it's different, but it's so funny because like she can't remember almost anything. Like she can't remember any of the Digimon except for like Agumon, but she knows the theme song by heart. You know what I mean? Like
That's
that's iconic. I feel like it is.
well, it's funny because like it was the same for Adventure and Adventure 2. Like just
Yeah,
that it's so simple too. It's just like the Digimon digital like just goes on. But then in Tamers,
they changed it.
it's the same song, but they added like this big choir in the middle of it, which is kind of epic. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and
Um,
like you said, the part that it says like ultimate or whatever, they changed it because it was like Matrix or I don't remember what, but they
yeah,
changed that part of it. So it just doesn't flow because you're like, why did you do that? You didn't have to
I,
put something good and make it worse.
I like the big baritone singers in the middle of it though, like where it's like super epic for no reason. Like that was a nice touch.
And then Frontier had a completely different theme song, but it really grew on me. I don't know.
Oh,
You should give it a listen. It's really good. I
I,
actually really like it.
I like Frontier's theme, and it
Yeah.
Frontier's theme is kind of a motive throughout, like it's like a leitmotif throughout the
Yeah.
entire Frontier series. Like you hear it so often, and it's so well written that like it never gets old.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the standout things from that series as well.
Yeah. Um, now I never watched anything after Frontiers. Like I kind of fell off. Like when Data Squad came out, I remember my reaction was, "Oh, Agumon's back, but why does he look weird?"
Why does he have straps?
Yeah, like it was just like kind of a thing where I was like, "Yeah, I'm probably." I
Yeah.
was into other anime by that point, so I was kind of like, "Nah, I'm good on my." If I want to watch Digimon, I'll watch the old series. Um, so then Try gets announced, and have you seen all of Try, or did you only see the first one
No, I
recently?
think I've literally seen the first one, first
Okay.
episode. Yeah.
I've seen them all once, but I only really remember the first one. So I'm not gonna go super. Actually, they just released the Zero Two movie, so
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet either, but I
I
hope to.
I picked it up. I'm a little concerned because the Amazon rated or like stars were like it had 3 stars. I'm like that's not a
Ooh,
good sign.
that's not good.
I get Zero Two is not popular because everyone hates Davis for whatever reason, but um, I'll wait and see because I have to rewatch all of them before I get into that one. But there was 6 movies in the Try series. Then there was an additional film, and then now
Oh yeah.
Zero Two is getting its own films apparently, which is fine. I'm happy that we're getting like old school Digimon because I won't lie, when they announced Try for the first time and I saw like adult Tai and like adult all the characters, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like
That's very nostalgic. Yeah.
because it's a direct continuation of Zero Two. I think
Yep.
it ignores like the ending of Zero Two a little bit, which is fine because that was kind of weird and pointless. But um, and the thing that I thought was amazing was they got back most of the original cast.
Yeah, which is surprising because when you add like 20 years on top, unfortunately some people pass away. So it was nice that they were able to get a good amount of the cast back.
They got Joshua Seth back as Ty. That was really the only one I was super. Well, they got him, and then the guy that plays uh Izzy's Pokemon, um,
Tentamon.
Tentamon. They got Tentamon's voice back because his voice is pretty iconic as well. They got the main two I really cared about, but like Joshua Seth was interesting because he'd been retired for a while at that point.
They must have offered them that cash. Honestly, sometimes it's not even about the money. It's just like if that's an iconic role for them, they're going to feel like they want to do it.
From what it sounds like, it was mostly just they wanted to like come back and do the role.
Yeah.
It's really funny because like the only other thing I know Joshua Seth from is he plays Tetsuo in the second dub of Akira,
Oh, okay. Interesting. Hmm.
which is really hilarious because it's literally just Ty's voice. And there's just points where like Tetsuo just screams like fuck really loud. And I'm like, it's just Ty screaming fuck. This is wrong. Like I kind of hate this.
Oh man, that's me like Vash the Stampede's original voice in the original anime. Whenever that guy, I don't know who it is, sorry, but whenever he does any other like anime or video games, he did a lot of the voices for like some Atlas games. And he'll just be like a background character. I'm like, it's Vash the Stampede. It's like,
Yeah.
what is he doing here? Yeah.
It's just so funny to me. That's kind of why when I watch Akira, I watch the original crappy dub, even though it's bad. I kind of like it for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Try films,
Yeah. What
I'll
did you
say
think?
the nostalgia was very high, but I'm not gonna lie, the story was kind of a mess.
That's what I heard as well.
Like it was super cool seeing like these brand new like high quality animations of like
Mhm.
everything, like because they bring out War Greymon and like they bring out Omnimon in the fucking first episode. I'm like this is sweet, and then it's like what's happening because nothing makes sense.
So you think that's the weakest part is just like the story itself?
I don't even want to say the story's bad. I just want to say I feel like it didn't need to be 6 films. I feel like
Mm,
they could have
sure.
scrunched it down to at least maybe 2 at most if they had to, and just made a more concise story because I feel like there was a lot of padding
That's
just to like
unfortunate. Yeah, just to like keep it going. Cause I remember when it was first coming out and they were like, yeah, it's a movie. And then I like watched part of the first movie and they're like, oh yeah, but there's like 8 more. And they were all separate Blu-rays at the time and stuff. And I was like, man, that's like,
a
that
lot.
sucks, right? You pay like 25 to $30 for each movie version of it. And you're like,
I,
man,
I I won't lie to you, I'm a little bitter because I tracked down all 6 of them, and then the second I got them all, they released the fucking combined
box
set,
set.
and I was
Yeah.
like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Okay."
But I
I
have to check. I believe Try is not available on streaming anymore, at least for Hulu. So
I don't think so, and I think that's
yeah, I don't
because
think so.
I think Shout Factory has the rights to it,
Oh no.
or whatever Shout Factory's anime division is now, because I don't think they have a different name they use now. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Um, the only other thing I wanted to ask was, did you check out they redid Adventure? Like,
Yeah, I wanted to. I'm glad you mentioned it because I wanted to talk about it. Yeah, so they redid it. I checked it out. I admittedly, haven't watched it all. When it first came out, I was watching it episode by episode, and I just felt like it was kind of too slow to do that. I would prefer to just kind of crank through a few at a time. So I've recently started to go through it again. Um, I love seeing the new animation again. It's just really cool to see like a 20-year-old series with fresh new animation
hmm,
and everything like that. The sound I really like, theme song I like, everything like that. The story is obviously different. I want people to know that going in. The story is not
okay,
the same at all.
that's
Well,
good.
I don't want to say at all, but there are definitely major differences in the story, which I think is kind of nice because it's like you don't want to just see the same exact anime, the same show that you already know what's going to happen. Um, but there
Yeah,
there are some weird things, and what I do like about it as well is similar to Frontiers is like so many background Digimon that are like new that like obviously didn't exist for like 10 years after the original show. So the fact that they can be there is really cool. So
I was a little bummed that they recast everybody, but I get it.
yeah,
The
no,
movies were one
yeah,
thing, but
yeah, and you'll get used to it, but yeah, but I will say that the theme song and the sound they put in, I think it's just updates to anime in general. Like they'll crank back in like sound effects that you're used to over and over again to kind of create those like emotional moments and stuff like that, which I feel like they didn't really do in the original series. So I think you'd enjoy it. But again, I would say anyone who wants to check it out, just go in knowing that it's not going to be exactly what you're used to, but it'll be similar characters and similar tropes with those characters. So
hmm. I will say on one final note, one thing that tragically that I'm still bummed we never got is there was actually a Digimon Adventures game on PSP that followed the events of the original anime.
yeah, I have it. I tried to use like my phone to like translate the Japanese because I heard somewhere that it's basically like I think it's a JRPG essentially, and it follows the story of the actual show, I believe. So like I tried getting through a little bit of it, but it ended up being frustrating. But yeah, you can. I mean, PSP is region free. You can definitely pick it up and
Oh yeah,
check it out. The visuals look good for Vita. I mean, it looks just like the anime. So
I've been tempted to pick that
it's
one up. I
very
should have.
cheap. You can definitely pick it up if you want, but whether you'll ever get to it, now I can't promise anything there.
I mean, I barely can get to games that I want to
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
So, oh boy. But yeah, I think we'll cut it off there.
Okay,
Unfortunately, my Digimon knowledge kind of ends. That's basically where it ends.
that's okay.
um, we kind of covered pretty much everything, though. It was an hour and a half. Not a
Yeah, it
bad.
was pretty good. I didn't think we would cover nearly as much as we got done in that amount of time.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is like if you're gonna watch Digimon, watch Tamers or like the original
Yeah.
um, Frontiers if you're very curious. I mean, you kind of have to watch Zero Two if you watch Adventure though, because they do connect.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
you wouldn't want to start with 02.
watch the movie though. I would say watch the movie.
Okay.
Enjoy that the Angelina Anaconda part. Um, but yeah, so I like any episode. I always have the guests shout out anything they're working on. Do you want to shout anything out, man?
Yeah, sure. I guess I would say still best way to see any content that I have is my YouTube, which is spelled the same as this, but it's Shnickerman on YouTube. I will say the content I've been doing recently is kind of all over the place. I'm kind of more going into like longer videos about things I'm nostalgic about. So if you like Digimon, I've got a bunch of videos related to the games,
Nice.
the toys, whatever. And I like just kind of deep diving into things that I think are interesting. So if that sounds interesting to you, great. If not, no big deal. And yeah, that I guess that would just be my one shout out for now. I'm in the Discord pretty actively, so if you want to talk JRPGs or anything, yeah, feel free to message me.
Nice. And I'll be sure to put a link to your YouTube directly in the description for this episode. But yeah, thanks for joining, dude. This was awesome. We'll have to do another episode at some point.
Part 2 sounds good.
Maybe if I ever watch more Digimon. I mean, I'm sure there's something else we can talk about at some point. And you'll be at Retro World this year, right?
I should be, yeah. So I will see you there. And if anyone wants to come hang out with us, we'll see you there.
Yep. You'll see me going crazy buying stuff that I don't really need.
Yeah, same. Same.
But yeah, so once again, everybody, thank you for joining us on Gaming and Collecting. You can find the Gaming and Collecting podcast on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. We are also a member of the Superpod network of podcasts, where you can find a whole bunch of awesome shows like Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, A Novel Console, Remember 64, Bar Silence, Fine Time, The Elder Trolls, Friday Night Gamecast, Tommy's video game car trip. I'm sorry, Tommy, I always forget your show. And those GNC shows, they're also there. And with that, everybody, you can also find all of our links at linktree/thebarbecue games. And with that, we will see you all later.
Peace.